All right, so we're going to talk about trigonometry today and trig ratios. So trig is just trigonometry. So you're going to hear trig in high school, you'll hear it in college. And to use trigonometry, actually, you need a calculator, and we can use, this is the TI-30, which I'll talk about, and you'll use mostly in 8th grade. And then there's the TI-83. No one uses that too much anymore. You could use it. And of course, in high school, a lot of them use the TI-84 Plus. This is the silver edition. It doesn't really matter. And for our purposes, all we need is a TI-30. But I'll explain the calculators. So first of all, what are we talking about? So trigonometry, again, it's from a Greek word. Trig means triangle, and we're just dealing with triangles, and especially, and exactly, the only triangles we're going to be talking about are right triangles. We can find the missing lengths, and the missing angles using trigonometry. And it's great for engineering, which I'll give an example of that later. But first, we need to know the ratios. And I'm sure if you looked at your calculator, you would see, and I'll show this to you, but there's 3 ratios over here. And the ratios, so let me just put them down. There's sine, right? Sine, and we'll just use it, say, on the calculator, it's just put that as sin. But it is sine, don't say sin. And then there's cosine. And on the calculator, it's that. Fix that C. Cosine. And then there's tangent. And there's 3 more. But today we'll focus on sine, just so you understand how to use it. But let's just look at these 3, just their ratios of these 3, and then we'll concentrate on sine. So let's say I had this triangle, and we'll use the Pythagorean triple, which we talked about, the 3, 4, 5. This is the famous one, right? And we know how to get the missing lengths because we've done the Pythagorean theorem already. But we don't know what the angle is. So how can we get the angle? We can get the angle using trigonometry. And I'm going to show you how to get that angle in a minute. But first, let's look at the ratios. So let's say I had this triangle, and let's say we have a degree here. And let's say the degree is 30. And over here we had a 5, and over here we had x. So in other words, we don't know what the hypotenuse is. And remember, the hypotenuse is the longest side of a right triangle. So we can use certain ratios, sine, cosine, or tangent, to find what x is, if this is all the information we have. So if I wanted to use sine, we use sine first, we're going to say sine 30 degrees equals, and here's the first ratio. It's going to equal the opposite, which is O, over the hypotenuse. So this is the opposite over hypotenuse. So what is opposite? Well, here's the 30 degree, right here. What is opposite the 30 degree? 5. So let's put a 5. See how it's opposite it? And what is the hypotenuse? We don't know. But this is the first ratio. And there's a way of solving this, which I can show you later. So here's our first problem, how to get the angle, which I'll show you. And here's our second problem. We'll go over those. But let's look at another. Let's say over here let's say we put a 7, right? So now we can use another ratio, cosine. Let's use the same degree, cosine 30 degrees. Now with cosine, it's A, meaning adjacent, over hypotenuse. Adjacent over hypotenuse. Adjacent means next to. So here's the 30 degrees. What's next to it? 7. Right next to it is 7. So the adjacent will be 7, and the hypotenuse again will be x. Let's do one more. Let's do tan. I'll do tan over here. So tan, to get tan, and we'll use 30 degrees again, we need to know the opposite, O, over the adjacent. So you tell me. Here's 30 degrees. What is opposite 30 degrees? 5, right? The 5 is opposite. And what is adjacent? 7. So the ratios go like this. And there's a way of remembering it. Some people do it as Oscar had a heap of apples. Some people use that. Or you can do Soh Cah Toe. I'll explain that again. But let's see if you can do this one. Let's say that was 40 degrees. And let's say that you had an X here, but you had a 5 here. So you have 40 degrees, and now you just need to know which ratio will you use to find X. What ratio would you want to use to find what X is? What do you think? Well, what's opposite 40 degrees? X. And what do you have? You don't have the hypotenuse. You only have what? You have what's adjacent to 40 degrees. You have the 5. What ratio is opposite over adjacent? Right here, tan. So we're going to use tan 40 degrees. Tan 40 degrees is X over 5, because we don't know what it is. What if I gave you this? What if you had, let's make it 30 degrees. Doesn't matter what degree. And over here you had an 8, and over here you had a, let's say 3. Doesn't matter. So we have 30 degrees equals, what are we trying to find? We're trying to find what? Nothing, because we already have it, right? But let's say we didn't know what that was. Let's put an X. What would we use for this? Well, we have the hypotenuse, that's 8, and we're trying to find X. This is what? It's not opposite, but it's adjacent over hypotenuse. So what should we use here? Right, cosine. Cosine. So remember, sine is opposite over the hypotenuse, cosine is adjacent over the hypotenuse, and tan is opposite over adjacent. So that's where we get this kind of a way to remember it. Take the S and you do so, the C, Cah, and the T, Toa. Soh Cah Toe. There's a way you can remember that. Or Oscar had a heap of apples. Okay, so let's solve the question we had in the beginning. I gave you the triangle, the Pythagorean triple, right? And we said it was the 3, 4, 5. And we're trying to find what that degree is. What would that degree be? Now we can call it degree theta, or we can alpha. It doesn't really matter. It just means we're just trying to find the degree. So what you're going to do here is we can say, well, we can use sine. Let's just use sine, because we said we'll concentrate on sine. We'll call it sine alpha. We don't know what it is, sine alpha. And we know with sine, you have to have opposite over the hypotenuse. So opposite sine is 3. And the hypotenuse is 5. That's why we're using sine. Okay, so let me show you the calculator now. Let's bring the calculator over here. Now to get the degree, what you need to do is, let's look at this calculator here. We're going to use the second button. We're going to press second, and then we're going to press sine. Second, sine. Second, sine. Okay? And usually in any calculator, like let's say you use the 84. If you use the 84, right here, it's second and sines in the same location. So we're going to press second, sine. Let's do it together. Right, so we're going to press second. Here's the second button, second. Right, and we'll press sine. And you notice that it has that -1. See that -1 on top? That's what you're looking for. Now I'm going to make a fraction. And when you make a fraction, you need to write it like this. So let me show you what it should look like. We want to put the fraction 3/5. Right? 3/5. So what we're going to do, we press second, the second button, which we did, the sine button, not sin, and it has that, automatically it came up with that parentheses. We want another parentheses because we want to make this in the calculator. Right? We're just showing the division sign here. That's why it's in parentheses. You could have also done second sine there's that thing, and put in 0.6 because 3/5 is 0.6. Whatever's easier for you. Remember, 3/5 is 0.6. So you can do this one, or you can do the one on the bottom. Right? So if we did that, punched all that in, as you can see, this is what I punched in the calculator, and it comes up with a degree of 36.8, and so on. You can round it to 36.9 degrees. So now we know that sine alpha is about 36.9. So we say 36.9 degrees. Now if we had the 36.9 degrees, and let's say we were missing the hypotenuse, let's draw that. So here is, let's say we didn't know what the hypotenuse was, even though we know it's 5, and we had a 3 there. And let's say this was 36.9. We can get the hypotenuse by now using sine. We're going to use sine 36.9 degrees equals, remember sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so it's 3 over x. So we're looking for the hypotenuse here, and we know this should be 5. X should be 5 if we do this right. Now actually, it's not going to be exactly 5 because we didn't put the full numbers of what sine was. Remember, there was a lot of numbers that followed it. So when you're doing something like this, and you should remember when we did this like in 6th grade and 7th grade and 8th grade, is you can multiply up or you can divide down. In this case, you can't multiply up because there's no number to multiply. So you're going to divide 3 divided by sine 36.9. So let's look what I do on the calculator here. I'm going to press 3, obviously, because we're doing 3, divided by, see it on the calculator? 3 divided by. Now we're going to press sine, you'll see the sine, and 36.9, 36.9. Make sure there's a point there. Yeah, that's what you should have. 3 divided by sine 36.9. And then press enter button. Right, the enter way over there. See it? Press enter. And we get very close to 5. We get 4.9965. And again, it's not 5 because we didn't put all the numbers in. So let's do a few more so we understand this. Again, the only time you use second and then the ratio is when you're missing the degree. But if you have it, then you don't press that second. Alright, so let's make another triangle. Let's say it's upside down. We don't know. We don't care. Alright, and let's say that this was 9. And let's say you have a degree here, a degree of 40. And you're looking for that. Well, why are we using sine? We're using sine because here's 40 degrees. Well, it's opposite, x. So we can say sine 40 degrees equals opposite over hypotenuse. So now, again, like I said before, you can either multiply up or divide down. Last time we divided down because we had a number. Now we can't divide down because we don't have a number. So we can just multiply up. So what would you get? It's 9 times sine 40. So you press sine 40 degrees, like I did here, sine 40 degrees, and times it by 9. And there's our answer. 5.78508, and so on. Or we can just say 5.8. You can round it. So x is 5.8. So we can find the missing sides, we can find the missing degrees. Alright, so let's look at this 3, 4, 5 triangle again, but the other way. It doesn't matter if it's the other way. And we'll use theta. And again, we're using theta because we do not know what the degree is, even though we know the degree because we did this before. But I'm going to show you another way to do this on the calculator. It's a little faster now that you understand it. So if you look here on the calculator, this button right here, right, that's a negative sign, right? You can press that button and do -3, -6, and so forth. It also has another function. And on the calculator, there's also multi-functions. That's why we use the second. Right? We use second so we can get the other function. So if you ever press that button, the second button, and that button, that means the second answer. It means the answer that was stored in the computer. Right? So for example, if I ever did 3 plus 6 and I pressed equal, and I get my answer of 9, and then I wanted to do something else. Let's say I want to do 9 times 9. Well, I can do 9 times 9, or I can do 9 times the second answer. Right? Now, when you're doing small numbers, it's not worth doing second answer. But when you have these large numbers, it's worth doing second answer. All right? And I'll show you what I mean by that. So we'll clear this out. And we're going to press 3 divided by 5. Right? Because it's 3 divided by 5 as it falls down. So I'm going to do 3 divided by 5 on the calculator. 3 divided by 5. And we know how to do that on the calculator. And you know we get 0.6. So what I can do second sign, and then I can do second answer, because it already has 0.6 stored in it. Second sign, second answer. Press that in. Second sign, second answer. Right, if you do that, you'll get the same answer we got before. 36.869. So one more time, I'll clear this out. Whatever the thing was, here was 3 over 5, you're just doing 3 divided by 5, right? And you get 0.6. Now you could do second sign and then put in the 0.6, or you can do second sign, right? That's what you'll get, second sign. And the computer already stored the 0.6, so you can do second answer, second answer. So you get that so far. And just press enter. Press the enter sign. If you press enter, there it is. So that's a fast way of doing it. You can do either way. Alright, and here's another problem that's called That Is It For Now. So that's part 1. We'll do more trig ratios in another video. Great job.